What's good, Yinzers? Thank you for tuning into the Sick Podcast. Steelers crazy per usual. I'm Mike Nicastro. Find me at Mic'd Up Sports 1 on the X. This is at J York Football. He's wearing his Tecmo Bowl Steelers shirt. Look at that. That is straight fire. He's ready to go. Put him in the ring. Conor McGregor, Mike Tyson. If you're watching this on video, you understand what I'm saying. But if you're listening to the podcast, Jordan is throwing some punches right now in his Tecmo Bowl Steelers shirt. How are you, bro?
Oh man, I'm good. Every day we get to talk Steeler football. It's a great day. So
I'm
ready to
Yinsed
rock
out
and
today.
roll. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
Amish.
Yeah, show us your shirt. Yeah,
I got my new Yinzer shirt
courtesy
on
of
here.
homage. Thank you guys.
Shout out to
Easy
the
Yins
H.
out.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'm Yinsed out in the hat.
Woo!
I got a Yinzer shirt. I won't talk about my underwear or socks, but all black and gold all day, baby. That's for sure. And like I said before, we're always pumped to talk Steelers football in any context. And today our guest is going to give us a little bit of the fantasy perspective, a little bit of the real world perspective. But I guess when you're somebody like me with 100 fantasy teams, that is the real world. Anyway, so let's get into it.
I thought it was only 7.
Well, it feels like 100. That's
700
during the all Sunday morning to it, so it feels like 100. But let's keep this show 100. What do you say, Jordan? We'll jump into it with a fun guest.
Russell Clay coming up next. Take it away, Jimmy.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Sports entertainment.
All right, we'll say it's from
no other.
Jordan, just take over.
Sick.
Yes. He is the fantasy football and NFL draft expert at fantasyguru.com, the one and only Russell Clay. We needed a drum roll.
Yeah, hell yeah. What's going on, guys?
Hey, thanks for coming on. First and foremost, really love your work, so happy to knock your brain today. So we're just going to jump right into it. I know we kind of talked off air a little bit. Just give us your thoughts initially on Arthur Smith. I know you had some tweets that Mike was talking about, so if you want to give us your take on those.
So my relationship with Arthur Smith went from when he was with the Titans and, the A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry years and the early Jonnu Smith years. I love the guy. I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. He goes to Atlanta. They get Kyle Pitts. And I'm like, all right, this guy, he's going to go to the moon here. And as a fantasy guy, I was a little disappointed with how things went. And I had to laugh because, what he did with Cordero Patterson and Jonnu Smith last year was amazing. Like the play designs, everything he did, he just wasn't using my guys. So it pissed me off. And thus his fantasy, right?
So it's personal.
It's our fake fantasy world. He did not do what I wanted him to do. So yeah, that's my Arthur Smith thing.
Now it all makes sense. I knew there was a method to your madness on this. So glad that you can let us know. So we got a bunch of new Steelers. Let's start with Russell Wilson behind center. How do you feel about him coming to Pittsburgh?
Sure. So Russell Wilson in Denver, I don't think anybody loved what happened there, especially that year with Sean Payton, which I think we all at least assumed there was going to be a decent floor. And there wasn't. It was really bad from the start. One thing I will say, the George Pickens combination with Russell Wilson, if he does start the whole year, I still have a lot of hope for Justin Fields. So that's kind of something I may be waiting on there. But the Russell Wilson moon balls to George Pickens, I am very excited about if that does happen. So Russell Wilson may be well out of his prime, but I am very high on George Pickens. And so this feels like a big stock up for him.
Well, sadly, the QB play, as you know, has not been the best. So I think at this point we'll take anyone. If Mike Tomczak can come out and throw 20 touchdowns, we'll take it at this point. And let's talk about that wide receiver room again. Roman Wilson. Do you think that he can be relevant right away?
So the way they set this up by letting go or trading Deontay Johnson, it does leave that hole there. Now, they do have Pat Freiermuth, who I think can take on a pretty big role as that slot intermediate weapon. But there's really, if Roman comes out and plays like he did at Michigan, I know it was a small sample last year, but if he can do that for Pittsburgh, they have a long track record of, drafting guys in that top 3 rounds of the NFL draft. You guys know this is a Steelers pod. I mean, the hit rate there is incredible. So I've been buying Roman Wilson in my dynasty leagues just because it's like, okay, Roman Wilson, solid player, but I'm trusting the infrastructure as well.
Must be serious if you have him there.
We're at mid 2, late 2?
Late 2 of rookie drafts, somewhere around there. Because we've seen it for years, that slot role in Pittsburgh can be very valuable. The Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky years didn't treat us great, but I think this, even an older Russell Wilson is going to be a lot better.
Yeah. I'm always curious. We never really talk dynasty on this podcast. I am somebody who has 5 dynasty teams myself, which is probably excessive. So anytime I get a chance to do this, I'm not sure the sample size of our demographic in terms of our listeners who play dynasty, but I'm sure there's a percentage. So anytime we can appease them, that excites me. So I'm curious, where do you have Jermaine Burton above Roman Wilson? Where does he kind of fall there?
So it's the same thing, right? Where, okay, that Tyler Boyd role is absent now. He's now in Tennessee. My one thing with Burton, who I do think is the lead for the slot there, is they drafted a guy last year, Charlie Jones, Purdue, wide receiver, who I was pretty excited about. They drafted Burton higher this year, but I'm looking at one of those 2 guys. And we know with T. Higgins, he wants all that money and he's probably going to get it, but has had a real tough time staying on the field. So if he's absent for a month or 2, one of those guys is going to be big. So those 2 in particular, I like that you kind of locked those 2 together. They're not sexy picks, but sometimes you need the Tyler Boyds of the world in a dynasty league that can get you 800 to 1,000 yards. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've taken the train off the tracks a little bit by throwing in a random Bengals rookie receiver on the show. I think at this point, I'm just asking for one-on-one consulting on my dynasty team and draft. So send me the bill whenever we get off of here. All right, let's pivot back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The running back room. Are you avoiding Najee and Jalen because of the split workload, or these 2 guys, and I guess speak from a general football perspective as well as a fantasy perspective, where does this whole running back room fall for you?
Yeah, so Najee Harris is a guy that I've liked since Alabama. It's funny because I get a lot of flack for I do the dynasty rankings on Fantasy Guru. Check that out. If you guys are into this dynasty niche stuff, that's what I do there. So go check that out if this suits you. But I have George Pickens really high in the dynasty rankings, and then I have had Najee higher. And these past couple years, again, I think the passing game or lack of has really affected Najee's ability to get any room. And I think there's going to be more room with even Russell Wilson or Fields out there. Whether it's Wilson, who again I mentioned can do the play action really well, or Justin Fields, who causes a whole bunch of other problems for defenses. There's going to be more focus on other players this year. And people like to point at Najee's efficiency, but in 2024, running back efficiency has so much to do with the system. And we saw with Jalen Warren last year, if he's getting out in space, if there's more space, I think both of these running backs are in a good spot. For fantasy, going to be tough week to week. Again, another niche fantasy thing that we do is best ball. So in best ball formats, if I can have Jalen Warren for a full year, I know he's going to have some big games and break some big plays. Najee as well. Think he could have more touchdown equity this year just because the offense is going to be much better. So that's how I'm looking at it. Week to week, still probably going to be tough with that committee.
Fair enough. And always good to hear that the offense will be better from an outside perspective to a degree. Something that might not be better or factor into that, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, is the receiver room outside of Pickens and maybe Roman Wilson, who we touched on already. Is there anybody else in that stable that intrigues you on the field once more and from a fantasy perspective?
The honest answer
is no.
No, Roman Wilson. And I will say, so Van Jefferson kind of gets a bad rap. He was probably overdrafted by the Rams and never really developed into, second round pick is supposed to be eventually a full-time starter. He didn't develop into that, but he had a really good second year, and he can definitely be a competent third wide receiver in an NFL offense. I'm not overly excited about it, but he can be solid in an NFL offense. And then, I mentioned Cordero Patterson. He's a running back, but Arthur Smith has shown a great ability to optimize this weapon. And I don't know how long this Cordero Patterson thing's going to last, but he's really fun, and they're probably going to use him in some really exciting ways as well. And again, I think it falls on Pat. Getting rid of Deontay, I think it's going to be George and Pat in the passing game this year. So
before I kick it back to Jordan, you threw out a little bit of an optimistic approach, it felt like, when mentioning Justin Fields. Why is that? Do you think he got a unfair shake in Chicago? And do you think maybe he'll see the field more than current expectations are in both packages and maybe as a starter at some point this season?
So you want to talk about a wide receiver room. Those Bears wide receiver rooms, I mean, he had DJ Moore in his final season, but when Darnell Mooney, shout out to Darnell Mooney, he was like a 4th, 5th round pick, and he's made a pretty solid NFL career for himself. But that's not really a number one in an NFL offense. He had Cole Kmet, but he was a rookie or second year guy. They really didn't have any offense around him. And if they get into this offense, having Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, George Pickens, and Pat, and maybe even Roman Wilson, with Arthur Smith, Arthur Smith did the best he could with Desmond Ridder and who was Heineke.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, he would unlock a whole different element. We saw what he did with Ryan Tannehill, who was, a wide receiver turned quarterback. I do believe that offense with Fields could be pretty dynamic. And again, that's basically the Russell Wilson. Was it just Denver? If it wasn't just Denver, then we have that insurance plan. Because if it wasn't just Denver and he really was that bad, then they're probably going to be wanting Fields after the first month of the year.
So with that being said, what is your overall expectations for the Steelers? Do you think this could be a playoff team? Are they kind of middle of the road, or just maybe miss the playoffs? Or is Mike Tomlin going to have his first losing season?
I loved what the defense was doing last year up until I think they had a few injuries there, but I really like the defense already. And I think without, the offense doing 5 straight 3-and-outs. I feel like they're going to be a little more motivated this year as well. And
when you put it that way,
I have gotten a lot of flack for being optimistic on the Steelers skill position players this year. So it's funny that we're doing this today. But yeah, I'm holding strong on my George Pickens conviction. I think he is a number 1 guy. I think he has been since his Georgia days, and the injuries and weird quarterback play there. And then he's comes to the NFL and he's had weird quarterback play. So I think he's going to have a stellar year this year.
There you go. So playoff team or not? I know it's early.
You said you like the defense. You like the.
I'm going to go with yes.
Like
we went to the playoffs with Mason
yes.
Rudolph.
I think it's a yes from Russell.
I think it's a yes. All right. My one thing is the Deshaun Watson. Yeah. If he's back, I'm going to say no. But if he's what we've seen the last, little while, then they're in. So it totally hinges on if Deshaun Watson is dust or good again.
Fair enough. I think that he's dust. I don't think that he'll ever be what he had.
Yeah.
That's just the most, and I know, anytime we can bash Cleveland, it's a great day, but it's literally, I just feel like he's just not going to have it. And everywhere he goes, he's just going to get booed. And Cleveland's Cleveland at the end of the day. I just feel like they're cursed. I don't know what they did, poked a voodoo doll or whatever the heck they did. But before I throw it back to Mike and we get you out of here, I did have one more question. We talked about the wide receivers. Do you think that the Steelers will trade for another wide receiver? And who do you think some names that come to mind that could be?
Man, they don't historically. I mean, they're so good at growing their own talent that I just feel like they brought in Roman Wilson. They're going to grind it out with this group. I
agree there.
If the Van Jefferson thing doesn't happen, and I mean, I don't know what you guys think about Calvin Austin. I haven't
Me
really.
and Mike, yeah, we agree. Gadget type guy. I think he reached his ceiling. I think he is what he is.
So if we're in there now, if something happens to Pickens, we could be looking at a trade here. But yeah, definitely a potential weakness there. But
Brandon Ayuk.
I mean, hell, right? Any team, that guy.
I know.
Holy crap!
We're waiting.
They all those 49ers, they just develop all their talent so efficiently.
Yeah.
And Ayuk's really turned into an asset they can't keep because they have too many. That 49ers offense is ridiculous. Yeah.
We seen it week 1. Wish we didn't. I wish that.
Oh no!
Oh, it was an ass whipping. Hopefully Pickens does stay healthy, or because I'm not ready for the Quez Watkins era of Pittsburgh Steeler football, or the Denzel Mims era.
The
Denzel. Wow,
that
you're
guy,
pulling
man.
him out of the hat.
Well, you talk about a dust bust. We'll start using the dust bust term. I kind of like that. Hey, Russell, it's been a ton of fun, man. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on.
Yeah, on Twitter, you can find me at Russell J. Clay. As I mentioned, I'm at fantasyguru.com. Our draft guide comes out tomorrow. I will be doing the Dynasty section. So if you're into that nerdy Dynasty stuff, that's my vibe. We got a Discord
7.
there.
5.
You're gonna be in double digits soon.
There we go.
I had to take 2 away.
He's gonna have to go to therapy for Dynasty League.
I'll probably sneak an orphan though. It's so hard, you pull up something before the season and you're like, all right, $20. Yeah. Let me sneak an orphan.
The best ball dynasties have saved my my existence. The week to week start sits crush my soul. But yeah, and I'm on TikTok, but that's mostly just I post stand-up comedy and
nice
comedic bits. So that's more just for fun. Yeah.
No, well, we really appreciate you coming on the show as well. Who is your team? Is it the Bears? Is that if you had to pick, or are you just the
Can you
love the
say?
NFL. Can you? Yeah, can you
You're an
say?
objective.
All right, I
Then
grew
some-
up. I grew up a Los Angeles Rams fan,
Wow.
and they beat me down to the point where I didn't really care and have a team anymore. My team the last couple years, I've been really on this Trevor Lawrence Jaguars thing,
Okay.
which, boys, it's been a wild ride. So I've been
Yeah.
kind of on that train, but yeah,
Big Waffle
overall,
House. You a big Waffle House guy?
I was after year 2, not so
Yeah.
much after year 3.
Yeah. Understandable. Well, hey, either way, you're part of the Steelers crazy family now, so we really appreciate you coming on. We'll be looking out for all the stuff on your website as well as the comedy stuff. So just keep it up, and we'll have to do it again. Thanks for your time, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it.
Thanks.
That was fun. We got a lot.
See, now you have someone who has as many dynasty leagues as you.
I
You
think
feel
he has
better?
more. And no, like I said, I had to take a couple away because really, last year was the first time in my entire existence that I got annoyed setting my lineups. I had never before felt overwhelmed by fantasy football, but last year was the first one where I was like, I'm not having fun anymore with all these because it was like 7 total, 5 dynasties. So I had to cut a few. My sanity, I'm sure, will be much improved this fall. But really good stuff there. I mean, I was super intrigued by the fact that he said Justin Fields is, or the offense really has a chance to be dynamic with Justin Fields in there. So it seems like some pro Fields takes in terms of maybe him playing a lot more snaps than a lot of us expect right now. If you go back a couple shows ago, you're going to hear one of our analysts saying that Justin Fields is terrible and should never see the field again. And, it's funny how fast forward a couple weeks and you have some more optimistic, positive takes. He's one of the most polarizing Steelers I've seen in a long, long time. And, we hope for the best, but we'll see what Arthur Smith can do, man. He did it with Tannehill. He said it.
Yeah, I'm standing by this. I'm still high on Russell Wilson, man. I mean, we've seen the QB 13 touchdowns in 2 seasons from Pickett, and I think that 26, 27. I said it on the last podcast, whatever he had, and if we get 20, that's an improvement. And I think with the deep ball, the play action, I think this is the year. I said it last year, but it goes back to having a competent quarterback behind center. Is that I think this is George Pickens' breakout year. You heard Russell say it. He's been the guys since the Georgia days, and I don't think that has changed. I just think he can't throw the ball to himself.
It better be his breakout year because they don't have much behind him right now. So it damn well better be.
Before we leave, I think the biggest thing that stuck out with me that he said about Van Jefferson is, everyone's like, he's just a guy. And I think a lot of the times in football, you get graded on where you're drafted. And it's not necessarily that you're you're just not reaching the potential of a number 1 pick, a number 2 pick. You might, maybe you should have been drafted. I said I was done talking about Kenny Pickett, but he's a perfect example. He wasn't a first-round draft pick. It was one of the worst QB classes. I think that Kenny Pickett could have a decent NFL career. I just think that he's not an MVP caliber quarterback, and that's just what it is. I think we all realize that now. But that was just an analogy to use, and we're done talking about Kenny Pickett. I have to take my own advice.
And I've always felt the same way about Najee Harris. I think he's a really good running back in this league, but folks always think of him as too high of a pick, right? You took this guy in the first round. Are you kidding me? If he's a 3rd-round pick and he's doing what he has the past few years, people are looking at him like steal of the draft. So you're absolutely right about that. I think it's tough to penalize a guy when he's selected that highly. You should penalize the team a little bit for sure. But at the end of the day, I think he's been a really, really solid player for the Steelers.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. I think that this is the most optimistic we've been, at least in the past 2 seasons. So let's just keep that positive energy rolling and get ready for the season. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I am Jay York Football. This is Mic'd Up Sports 1, and this is the one and only The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Shout out to Homage for the shirts. Got the throwback on. He's yinsed out. We love it. Pittsburgh proud. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts at. JY, Jimmy, Mike, Russell, thank you again. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.